The PlayStation 2 is the most successful video game console of all time, leading a 13-year legacy of incredible games that has made a profound impact on not only the games industry, but millions of people worldwide. So without a doubt, there's a lot of interesting things out there about the PlayStation 2 that people simply don't know. That's why today we're going to take a look at over 50 quickfire facts about the one and only PlayStation 2. While it's no secret that the PlayStation 2 is number one in video game console sales, with 155 million units sold worldwide, it's lesser known that the system saw 3,874 games released in total, with combined software sales of over 1.5 billion. Early into the PS2's lifecycle and prior to the Xbox and GameCube, many analysts at the time were predicting a very close three-way match between each console, which in hindsight wasn't even close given Xbox ended with 24 million units sold and GameCube 21 million. Upon boot up, you might be familiar with the white towers animation that appears every time you turn on your PlayStation 2, but those towers are actually influenced by how many game saves are present on the inserted memory cards. The more save files you have, the more towers you'll see. Speaking of save files, Sony actually suffered a massive shortage of memory cards back in the day. The company did not anticipate 8 megabytes being insufficient for most households, and the massive sales the console saw made the memory cards in high demand. The PlayStation 2's design isn't entirely original. It was actually a design inspired from the Atari Falcon microbox. The Sony patent for the PS2 even credits Atari. Sony liked how the design would allow for consumers to play the console vertically or horizontally. Another purposeful design choice was the colors. The PS2 logo was blue to symbolize Earth, while the black console was meant to symbolize the vastness of space. While the PS2 was a great DVD player for many consumers back then, it actually also had Netflix support via disc, though this was only available in Brazil and never saw a release anywhere else. Speaking of Brazil, the PS2 officially launched there in late 2009. Yes, late 2009, and it cost approximately $461. Oh yeah, it's very expensive to buy games there. Sony had plans to expand the broadband capabilities of the PS2 by offering a streaming music service, but it ultimately never came to fruition. At a certain point, the PS2 was the subject of terrorism scares. It was rumored that Saddam Hussein was collecting a bunch of consoles to repurpose them as military weapons. This evidently turned out to be false. However, because of the military weapon scares, Japan faced some exporting restrictions for a little bit while the whole scenario was being evaluated. While the original PlayStation had mouse support, it required Sony's official product. The PS2 accepted most third-party USB mouses for the few games that supported it. In 2002, a British man named Dan Holmes enjoyed his PS2 so much that he decided to legally change his name to Mr. PlayStation 2. He apparently at the time also attempted marrying the console and spent over £7,000 on games. The PS2 ended production in January of 2013 and miraculously still had games releasing well beyond that. Some of its final releases were FIFA 14 and Pro Evolution Soccer 2014.
That's an attempt on goal! Oh, wrong side of the post!
He's just took his eye off it there, Clive, for a split second. There's a lot of people around him.
While Sony did cease manufacturing in 2013, they still repaired consoles well beyond that. September 7, 2018 was the last day Sony Japan set for any final repairs requested from owners. PS2's DualShock 2 controller features analog pressure sensitivity for the buttons, so depending on the games that supported it, pressing harder on the buttons actually did work. Sony released an official Linux disk with keyboard and mouse for those who wanted to go online and use open source code with their PlayStation 2s. The PS2 wasn't without its problems. Early on, the console suffered from disk read errors and in some cases damaging save files or disks. Sony eventually ended up offering repairs and even $25 compensation checks. PS2 actually supported high definition for a very few select titles. Games like Valkyrie Profile 2 and Taurus Trophy could be played in 1080i.
I shall cut asunder your earthly bonds! Finishing strike!
In 2003, Sony launched the PSX in Japan, which was a PS2 DVR system with a built-in hard drive. This was one of the very first uses of Sony's XMB user interface. Ultimately, sales were poor and the system never saw a release outside of Japan. When Sony launched the slimmer PS2 in September 2004, they initially let the old model run out in stores, but they didn't manufacture enough slim models to coincide with running out of old models. There was a massive shortage, and to make matters worse, a cargo ship carrying PS2s from China to the UK was blocked by a Russian oil tanker. In 2010, Sony released a 22-inch Bravia HD TV with a PS2 built right in. Nowadays, these are very rare and hard to find. A very rare set of PS2 consoles are the 50 millionth edition, celebrating 50 million consoles sold. They came in aqua blue, metallic silver, and sakura pink. More rare than that is the automotive edition, celebrating 20 million consoles sold. Only 2,000 were made for each color, and they came in light yellow, metallic silver, ceramic white, super red, and astral blue. Now you might be wondering, why would it be called Automotive Edition when it's celebrating 20 million units sold? Because the father of PlayStation, Ken Kutaragi, loves cars. The colors were picked out from his favorite cars, which included a BMW and Mercedes. Early PS2 consoles could be networked together via an I.Link port. This, however, had very little support from developers, so Sony stopped supporting it as well. One of the first games to truly master a seamless open world was Jak and Daxter, released in 2001. Aside from loading the game and your save file, the game could be played from start to finish with no visible loading screens.
Look, old man, are you gonna keep yapping, or are you gonna help me out of this mess?
I'm gonna keep yapping, because in my professional opinion, the change is an improvement.
The father of PlayStation, Ken Kutaragi, expressed slight remorse in 2001, admitting the PS2's architecture was too complex. He was quoted as saying, "Yes, the parallel architecture is very deep, but difficult. We should have made it easier for content creators in the beginning." At one point internally, Sony was considering a subscription service for what was initially called Sony Network, PS2's online play. They were even considering subsidizing it with free hardware like a cell phone plan. During a DICE Summit keynote in 2015, Oddworld creator Lord Lanning made a bold statement that PS2 and PS3 were so difficult to develop for that they put many developers out of business.
And it was the first time I ever saw you get passionate about it. Because you're going, why? Why? He changed the industry, he changed this. And I said, he put half of the development community out of business. But what it was I'm sure none of you can relate to that.
The PS2's iToy was actually conceived as early as 1999 by Dr. Richard Marks after he was impressed by an early PS2 demonstration during GDC. He joined Sony Computer Entertainment that year to pursue the peripheral even further.
And then when I draw a shape with it, one of the PlayStation symbols, that's going to recognize the gesture of what spell I want it to cast. So if I do a circle, that's the fire spells. So then I can cast the magic fireball spell.
The iToy is technically still a very basic webcam with USB, and with the correct installed drivers can be successfully used on a computer. iToy Cameo was software that would allow you to scan your face to be used in games that supported the feature. This, however, wasn't really widely adopted, and not many games used it. Rule of Rose is an infamously rare PS2 title because it had a very limited release. It was banned in many countries and sold in very low volume. The title had a reputation of having child cruelty, which ended up not being true, but this is what led to its limited run. Another rare survival game was Kuan, which received mediocre reviews due to its length and low replay value, and because of that it sold very poorly, and it now holds a value in the $200 to $400 range. While the PS2 is backwards compatible with PS1 games, not every game works. A select few titles have issues, like Metal Gear Solid and Tomba. Tomba, for example, has to have the intro sequence play out for the game to start properly. The original PlayStation is actually forward compatible with DualShock 2 controllers from the PS2. On the flip side, the PS3 is backwards compatible with DualShock 2 controllers with the help of a separate peripheral, though the controller will fail when the games require 6-axis functionality. One of the PS2's launch games, Fantavision, was actually an early tech demo for the PS2 hardware, which eventually ended up turning into a full game. When the PS2 launched, it was difficult to find in stock, so even back then, in the year 2000, people were indeed buying consoles on eBay and paying over $1,000, which adjusted for inflation would be around $1,467 today. The best-selling PlayStation 2 game was none other than Grand Theft Auto San Andreas at an impressive 17.3 million copies sold. Second place went to Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec at 14.9 million copies. Sony is essentially to blame for kicking Sega out of the console business. Despite the Dreamcast's successful launch with $97 million made in the first day, Sony made over $250 million on the PS2's first day. This eventually caused Sega to discontinue the Dreamcast by March 2001. The original Fat PS2 had an expansion bay for a traditional hard disk drive, and this was required for Final Fantasy XI. The redesigned Slimline PS2, however, removed the expansion bay, and thus made it impossible for owners to play Final Fantasy XI. The PS2 reached 100 million units sold in 5 years and 9 months from its original launch date, an absolutely incredible feat. One of the first commercials for the PS2 was actually for a theoretical PS9, an orb of unmatched wonders and capabilities in the futuristic world of 2078. The commercial ends with showing the PS2, implying that this is the beginning. The SingStar games on PS2 can actually be used on SingStar for PS3. The PS3 would request the PS2 game to be inserted to read the songs off the disc. One of the strangest peripherals for the PlayStation 2 was the Onimusha 3 Katana controller. Yes, a full-blown sword that can be used as a controller. After the PS1 launch, Ken Kutaragi began work almost immediately on PS2, and when the PS2 launched, he began almost immediately on PS3. By the time the slimline PS2 launched, Sony was getting serious about online network play and added an Ethernet port to the console, but in some markets they actually built a modem into the console as well. Now you might not believe this one, so bear with me, but the PlayStation 2 actually got its name from being the second console after the first PlayStation. And Skyrim has never officially been released on it. Not yet. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed making it. The PlayStation 2 is such a great platform. I have so many fond memories with it, so I always try to find a good excuse to make a video about the PS2, and I think this was a good one here, so that worked out great. But if you have not yet, subscribe for the best PlayStation news, reviews, and updates that are here on YouTube, and that's pretty much it. That's it for me in this video. I will see you all in my next one. You take it easy.